What happens when a designer sells his name and steps away from the empire he built himself? In 2023, Tom Ford bid farewell to his own empire, a brand he had sold for a staggering $2.8 billion. Beauty went to Estée Lauder, fashion went to Zegna, and Ford, who for decades had left his mark on every ad, every garment, every headline, quietly walked away from it all. Now, someone else is designing under the Tom Ford name. The runway continues, the logo remains the same, but the man himself is no longer there. But the person who turned Tom Ford into more than a brand, who made it a work of art, he is gone. Tom Ford was never just a brand. It was a performance, an ongoing spectacle, the impossible dream of a perfectionist. He built his image like his suits, precise, alluring, and entirely under his control. And that image became a vast business. But the question remains, what happens when the man behind the business is no longer there? To answer that, we have to go back to his early days, back to the man who didn't just revive Gucci, but who built himself into a symbol of ultimate luxury. Ford's approach to fashion was never accidental. He studied, observed, and ultimately reshaped everything in his vision. He began studying architecture, but that was only temporary. His true ambition lay elsewhere. When he joined Gucci in 1990, he wasn't aiming for an avant-garde revolution. He wanted everything to be beautiful, sharp, and completely controlled. And he knew exactly how to achieve it. At the time, Gucci was a name everyone recognized, but no one wanted to wear. Tradition existed, but cultural influence did not. He changed that almost immediately. By 1994, he became creative director, and the momentum began. Velvet suits, sheer shirts, low-rise trousers. Suddenly, they defined an era. But Ford's vision went beyond clothing. He controlled everything: casting, lighting, typography, even the scent of a perfume bottle. Nothing went public without his approval. He built the brand like a film set, every scene meticulously staged, every look part of a larger story. As Gucci acquired other brands, Balenciaga, Yves Saint Laurent, Ford expanded too. He took the creative helm at Yves Saint Laurent, despite Yves himself hating it. But that was the point. Ford wasn't seeking heirs, he sought influence. And he achieved it. Yet Gucci was never truly his own. When it passed to the French luxury group PPR, the dynamic changed. Ford wanted complete creative control, the new owners wanted their say. The tension didn't last. In 2004, Ford left Gucci, Saint Laurent, and the entire fashion group. The industry was stunned, but for Ford, it was a matter of principle. If he couldn't do it his way, he wouldn't do it at all. The next chapter didn't begin immediately. No runway shows, no new collections. Many wondered if he would ever return to fashion. But Ford always understood the meaning of power, not just in design, but in branding. He knew the value of his name. He would return on his terms. 2005. Ford knew where the profit lay. Most importantly, he realized that in the 2000s, a brand's power came from its image, not its clothes. So before selling clothing, he sold desire, packaged in a pair of sunglasses or a bottle of fragrance. With his longtime partner, Domenico De Sole, he built not just the label, but an entire ecosystem. Fragrances, sunglasses, lipstick, razor-sharp suits, all carried one vision: confident, polished, curated perfection. Even the stores reflected this world. Black lacquer walls, gold fixtures, deep carpet, soft lighting, arranged like a film set. You weren't just shopping, you were stepping into a defined luxury. Men's clothing arrived in 2007, women's in 2010. From the beginning, Ford chose limited distribution, high prices, minimal branding, no mass market lines, no cheap alternatives. His return to Fashion Week was entirely on his terms. Private presentations, limited access, no live stream. He wasn't chasing hype. He was cultivating the brand's real value. It worked. His designs became the red carpet mainstay. His name regained cultural momentum. Fashion press saw his work as the brand itself, sharp, stylish, and controlled. Meanwhile, the beauty division became a global powerhouse. Fragrances and cosmetics brought enduring revenue most fashion labels could only dream of. At this stage, Ford was no longer just a designer. He had become an image manager. Collections rarely changed seasonally, and criticism followed. But reinvention was never the goal. The goal was control, consistency, perfection. By the early 2020s, the Tom Ford brand was a rare, distinct luxury business, global, profitable, still shaped by its creator. But as the business matured, pressure mounted. Fashion was no longer the main engine. Beauty and fragrance carried the weight. And in that world, independence rarely lasts. Since 2005, Estée Lauder had held the beauty license. By November 2022, they acquired the entire brand for $2.8 billion. Beauty and fragrances went to Estée Lauder. Fashion went to Zegna. Eyewear went to Mark Holan. For the first time, Tom Ford no longer owned his name. He stayed briefly for the transition. In April 2023, he presented his final collection. No successor, no farewell campaign. Just a sharp, perfect exit. At first, little seemed to change. Stores remained open, branding stayed, products continued. Yet an invisible shift was felt. Because Tom Ford was never just a label. It was an attitude. Sleek, seductive, in control. Every campaign light, every store layout carried his imprint. Now, that force was gone, leaving only the shell. Estée Lauder focused on beauty. Fashion became a secondary concern under Zegna. Structured, but without the creative DNA. After Ford left, Peter Hawkins, Ford's longtime collaborator, became creative director. His job, maintain the brand, not transform it. And you did. Collections were neat, familiar, Tom Ford-esque. But the spark seemed extinguished. Meanwhile, the beauty division continued to expand. Lipsticks, bronzers, new fragrances, selling globally at airports and department stores. Financially, this made sense, since fragrance alone brought more than half the brand's revenue. But culturally, the brand began to lag. Red carpet presence diminished. In the era of quiet luxury, where brands like The Row or Kite redefined status, Tom Ford's shiny, glamorous formula felt like a memory of the past. The business survived, but for a brand that once defined a generation's idea of cool, survival alone wasn't enough. By early 2025, Hawkins also stepped down. He was replaced by Guillaume Giselle, brand CEO and former Estée Lauder executive. An unusual choice for fashion. But the message was clear. Estée Lauder sees fashion not as a creative branch, but as part of a beauty-driven commercial strategy. In June 2025, the first post-Hawkins collection arrived. Sharper styling, younger casting, stricter tone, but what was missing was playfulness. The paradox of the Ford era, luxury with a sly smile, seduction with perfect control, was gone. The new look was cold, editorial, armored rather than dynamic. Some called it a necessary reset. Others called it the final step in erasing the brand's personality. So, where does Tom Ford go from here? Estée Lauder is building a beauty empire. Zegna is managing fashion. But without Tom Ford, does Tom Ford still feel like Tom Ford? Or has the fire gone out? Comment below. And as always, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.